One of the big things that's prevalent in the New Age community is this idea that since we all appear to be human, then everything is okay. So in the New Age community, humanity, or to be human, or the oneness that connects us all, is the God to those people. So in Christianity, you have Jesus and whatever the Bible tells people to do because of that. In science, you have hard evidence. You have whatever it is that they say is hard evidence based upon their supposed experiments, supposed images that they take, which we know is CGI, which we know is based upon theory. In the scientific side of the New Age community, you have the ether or the energy that connects us all. So for example, when somebody first gets into the New Age community, they don't really have any ground to step on. They don't have anything to grab onto. So the attraction to that community, to that part of themselves, is the human aspect. We're all human. We're all one. Let's stop dealing with hate. It's a very play school version, approach, interpretation of what's going on. They see black and white racism. They see death and destruction, war, and all this stuff. And then they say, well, I don't want to be a part of that. That's not who I am. I feel this way. Let's be human. And they sell that as the answer to the world. We're all human. We're all one. This is why I said in many different examples that the New Age community or that New Age approach is the foundation to the New World mindset, the New World selling points. But it's not as simple as just we're all one, we're all human. There are levels, there are stages to this information, stages to approaching this work, because this is an internal and external mechanism, and it continues to grow. So my main point with this is that these are the controlled oppositions that are out there. It's not just the progressive movement with people like Cenk Uygur and the Young Turks and Alex Jones with InfoWars, and even the Republicans. Even on the lowest, most basic ass scale, people really think that Republicans are the saving grace.
We are the least racist, most accepting, multiracial country in the history of the planet, and I pray one day you'll be thankful to live in that country. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you.
That's how empty people have gotten with analyzing this situation. So to not get off track and how bad or how distracting one is over the other, I'll try to just list off the various controlled oppositions and how they work without going into too much detail. So the trigger for this video was this idea of the humanity aspect. And we hear it all the time. It's in different groups. It's starting to come out to the surface a little more now because Terrence and Billy Carson are going a little bit more mainstream, and they are sitting at the doorway to the New Age community for the mainstream community. And they're saying, come on in, welcome. We've done a lot of work. We've been here for a long time. There's a lot to see. There's a lot to learn. We've been lied to for a long time. Look, 1 times 1 isn't 1 anymore. It's 2. Your whole perspective on reality has to change. It's completely different. Look at this. And at the end of the day, when they finish all of their selling points, how they lock you in is how you know what they're really selling and how far they're going to go. So in the Terrence Howard circles, that's what I'm saying are the stage 2 of the New Age community. Stage 1 is the we're all human, we're all one, let's all be better people, not go to war, create sustainable environments, take care of the earth, take care of the animals, and that's it. So basically the darker perspectives of reality don't exist, they don't matter. That's a lower energy. So don't think about that. The people who are in that cycle, in that situation, that's their journey, that's their chosen reality, so they have to deal with that on their own. They have to dig themselves out of that lower vibration on their own. Because look at us. I was born in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I moved to Sedona, Arizona, and I have been living as a higher vibrating being my entire life. They see themselves as different. They see themselves ultimately as better. I'm not afraid to say that in the slightest, because that is the exact tone and vibration that I get when I'm around a lot of these people. I'm not saying everybody, but the overall tone and aspect of where they're coming from, it equates to that. Because I've asked people specifically about these questions. I say, look, okay, well, you were grown in this environment. You came up not having to deal with this stuff. Does that make you a higher vibrating being? That ultimately, that's what they're saying. So it's an extension of the system of racism, white supremacy. It's an extension of the dismissal, the deflection, the downplaying, because there's no difference from a mainstream community saying the same thing, just more abrasively. It's like, oh, well, you're this and you're that. Why can't you just pull yourself by your bootstraps? That's the different version of pick yourself up by your own bootstraps. They'll get out of it. It's their journey. Same thing. And when you bring this directly to their attention, the response is to demonize you and put you into a category that is with the group of people that you're mentioning. So you're no longer on their team anymore because you're bringing low vibrations into their world. You're making them feel a certain way about their reality. And that certain way doesn't exist in their high vibrating new age community. So you have stage 1, which is humanity, stage 2, which is the geometry of humanity. Stage 1 is actually the stage 2 for escaping the political mindset. So people who are stuck in Democrats and Republicans, they think that the Democrats are the good guys and the Republicans are the bad guys. So in the mainstream community, the higher vibrating political party is the Democrats. Now they're shifting it into the Republicans because it's easy for people to jump from one camp to another when they're stuck in that mentality. All you have to do is change the code and people will jump on board. This is why you have old happy Democrats who were supposedly forward thinking and sustainable who are now seeing the downsides of the Democratic Party and seeing how they're being manipulated to corrupt society. Oh, now I'm a Republican.
We're creating a movement to say we never want to go back to the segregation that once existed in this country that is now being pushed by people in corporate America, in academia, and other places. We want to strive for a country that cares about character and the soul and the spirit of the individual, not on tribes, not on the melanin content in people's skin.
They need something. So the Republicans are now the higher version of humanity because the Democrats are now part of the cabal and bringing in this manipulated version of reality to suppress and install all these systems that are just completely against so many things, but also for a system that means to expand its control. So the Democrats and the Republicans work hand in hand. Republicans are trying to hold on to that old power. Democrats are being used to bring in the new power. And they're both the same because the new power is an extension of the old power. So Republicans who think they're doing something only because they're doing what the Democrats are not doing, opposite of the Democrats, they think they're doing something different and better, but they're not. They're actually doing what the system that is behind the Democrats want them to do because they play one against the other. They can't do it alone. If they do it alone, then it looks like a dictatorship. But if you put it out there like a two-party system and it seems like the people are doing this, then there's no accountability for the controllers, the puppeteers behind the strings. So what they do is they have to push these people out there like Terrence Howard and Billy Carson who sell one step beyond what is digestible in order to keep the carrot in front of that donkey so that the people can keep moving along. Because if the people become stagnant, then you can't bring in the more complex versions of that mind control that is needed to push these agendas forward. So the programs have to appear as if they are growing, as if they are changing, as if they are evolving, because the system represents the mindset of the people. So the artificial growing, the artificial evolving is the way this world is sold into the future. So they tout humanity and the God that connects us all as something to look up to, as something to repeat and be a part of and unify us all. But ultimately, it's a controlled opposition. No different than the Democrats were a controlled opposition when they were sold to the masses of people as the better party. And to emphasize that idea of the humanity and the God that connects us all, the ether, the energy that connects us all, the proof that that's a total farce in that linear thinking is we have demons and we have angels. You have energies that exist, that parasite, that suck the life. And then you have support. And it's not as cut and dry as that, because you do have demons and energies, dragons type energy that works in between. But I'm talking in reference to the extremes, the energies that you're most closely related to, because there are in between. Humanity can be seen as one of those in betweens, having the capacity to do the most damaging and the most angelic. But in reference to what I was bringing up specifically, the very fact that you have energies like demonic energies and angelic energies, if that's true, then the flag of humanity and the God that creates us all as something to unify around is bullshit. Because you don't hear the angels talking about, we're all connected. We're all one. You guys are all human. We're all energy. The angels aren't saying that when they have to go down and deal with some business with some demonic entities. It's not a thing. It's a totally baseline, manipulated mindset, human approach to what's going on. It's very juvenile. If we're all one, we're all energy, we're all connected in this God and humanity. If that was the answer to the world, it just wouldn't be. It's not that simple. Like I said, you would then have no reason for angels to have their relationship with demons the way it is. Yet in these New Age communities, they still talk about angels. They still talk about demonic entities and all this other stuff. They reference all this stuff. But at the end of the day, before they tuck themselves in at night, what keeps them comfortable is this idea that we're all one, we're all God, we're all humanity, and that's the end of it. I'll see you in the morning. Good night. Wake up and do it again. There's a purpose for these balances that are out there. There's a purpose in the complexity of what's going on. It's not as simple as just like, oh, well, we all are a part of God. It's all this, it's all that, and then we'll just put our heads down and just keep on going. No. That is the perfect example of what a system of control would want people to do. They need people to be in that so-called higher vibrating state of being, to not do anything, to not be aware of anything, to allow the world to do whatever it wants to do, because that's what they're going to do. They're going to bring in their next control grid. So there's a purpose to accountability. There's a higher vibration to holding these entities accountable. There's a higher vibration to questioning these so-called realities. There are checks and balances with angels and demons. There are checks and balances with humanity. The watering down of these perspectives is ultimately counterproductive, because it doesn't allow people to finish reading that chapter. And if they can't finish reading that chapter, they sure as hell can't finish reading the book or even understand the book. But when you inhibit yourself from reading the chapter, the mechanisms that keep you from finishing that chapter start to become a bubble. They become your world, and you have to convince yourself of the lack of movement in that world, in that unfinishing of that chapter, as the end-all be-all to your reality. So the assuming the identity of we're all one, we're all God, we're all human, And that is a way of not finishing a chapter. You haven't finished the chapter of why certain humans have done certain things to other humans. You haven't finished the books pertaining to the relationship between angels and humans, dragons, demons, the jinn, aliens, so-called aliens, and their relationship to demons and jinn and all this stuff. So in that space of half and misinformed people, this is where you enter in people like Alex Jones, Terrence Howard, Billy Carson, because you get those people who are floating in the middle of that chapter and you hook them. And when you got them hooked, you fling them into the next book that you want them to read. And it's the same kind of words in the same kind of book and the same kind of ink that's drying on that paper. It's all very similar, but it's reading you into another reality that does not have your best intentions in mind. It has the intentions of the person or entity that hooked you into that mindset. Those intentions are in mind. And that's what's happening with the masses of people who are being hooked by people like Terrence Howard and anybody who gets caught up in the New Age community. This happens with channelers. Everybody's doing the same thing. Politics, Democrats and Republicans, angels and demons, they just flip the roles every now and again. Back in the day, the Republicans used to be the Democrats. The Democrats were the ones who had all the slaves. And then they flipped the script and turned the Republicans into the racists and all that other stuff. Then the Democrats became the good guys. And now the Democrats are becoming the bad guys again. And the Republicans, it's the same thing that they do with your presidents. They go from Democrats to Republicans because the people have such a short-sighted memory and they're so weak, they have no power. So they will just hope their way into the future, hoping that the people in power will do something to help them. And the power behind that power, why people allow that to happen, is because the people have been convinced and think that that system, Western systems, are the evolutionary peak of humanity. This is why I say cosmology and science overall is very important, especially when you're looking at these people who are selling in new information, new perspectives, new approaches. It's very important to keep this in mind, because if they're not mentioning this, then it's a very good chance that they're a part of the problem and not of any solutions. So it's easy to point out if somebody's selling like this. Like if Terrence Howard came into Sedona, Arizona, and he decided to spend 3 months there, and he wanted to do 2 talks every week for 3 months, and he was telling everybody there, and he made it free, and you could just show up and do it. If he was selling you everything that he sold on the Joe Rogan Experience, you would think he was a fucking con artist, guru, selling in the same shit that all these other gurus have done. But since he's on a Joe Rogan platform, it seems a little bit different. Take the platform away, put him in a different environment, and he looks a lot different. The way he has to sell that information, the way he's saying what he's saying, the way he's using his influence, it's exactly the same way gurus do in the New Age community. Because people who, like I said, they don't have anything to hold on to, they need something to hold on to. They're like blowing in a chamber, holding on by one thread of something, whatever that thread is. That thread could be holding on to, we're all one, we're all human. It could just be hope. It could be crystals. It could be sacred geometry. They're holding on, and this hurricane of wind is just blowing them in this tunnel. And all of a sudden, Terrence Howard fucking shows up with a box of drones and a bunch of math that he says that is real. And then people are like, hey. And then they have something else to grab onto. So they grab onto his flower of life, and it makes it so much easier. And then they grab onto his drone that has platonic solid science in it. Oh, it's so much easier. And it's going to change the way we travel and fly and all. And then it makes it easier. You can hold on to that. It anchors all these people down, and it gives them a break, because Before, they were just holding on to this one thing as the hurricane of energy and wind was just blowing them. So they need people like Terrence Howard. They need people like Alex Jones, people who do not think for themselves, which is the majority of people. They need people to tell them how to think, how to act, how to feel. So they take that information and install it into what they already know, and then it becomes their reality. And then they're also reassuring themselves that they are on the right path. So the very existence, having Terrence Howard on the Joe Rogan Experience, knowing that people in the New Age community watch or at least are aware of the Joe Rogan information stream, when they're in their bubble in places like Sedona, when they see information like that being spoken on Terrence Howard, out of Terrence Howard's mouth on Joe Rogan's podcast, it reassures them of their journey, of their work, of their dismissal of other information. Because here is a so-called black man on top of that, sprinkle that shit in. He's on the biggest podcast in the world speaking about platonic solids, the flower of life, and math. So he doesn't even pay attention to what's going on in the world in reference to so-called black people, the system of racism, white supremacy. He also dismisses what's important, how what we see is important. Because like I said, I went through the New Age community. I've seen what's going on there. I know where they're taking that and what they're going to do with it and what it does to the individual and what it has potential to do to the masses, because the New Age community itself is a little test group. It's a little petri dish. You can see what can happen. If that spreads out of that petri dish, it will be effective on a large scale to some degree. So they take those perspectives, they take that information and they say, okay, well, if he's not talking about it, well, I was right not to think about it myself. It makes everything that I've been thinking about and not thinking about okay. I don't have to think about that stuff because he doesn't even think it. He's got all the power in the world and he doesn't even think it's relevant. What he thinks is relevant is the flower of life, just like me. We're the same. I should listen to more of what he says. You know what? 1 times 1 isn't 1. It has to be something else. And then they need that shit. And then when you put yourself up against somebody like Neil deGrasse Tyson, it's not that hard to look really good. Like I said, the same way that Neil deGrasse Tyson beats the shit out of religious people to make himself and his science look amazing, other people do the same thing. Republicans do this to Democrats. Democrats do this to Republicans. They do this because they know that the mind of the masses are going to accept that. And that's all they need. They don't need anything more than that. They just need to see the fight. And once they know who's right and who's wrong, the people will do the rest in their own mind. So you put Terrence Howard, the carrot, out there for the New Age community. Everybody else will do the rest. He'll suck in the New Age community. He'll suck in people in the mainstream community who have no fucking idea about what he's talking about. They've never seen the flower of life in their life. They've never heard of a platonic solid. They don't know any of this science exists. But when they start researching and know that it's real science, then they're going to start connecting it and making it a bridge to the ancient sciences, which is what Billy Carson comes into the discussion and says, oh, yeah, well, you know, the stuff Terrence Howard was talking about, well, you know, that connects right to the Anunnaki because they were spraying gold in the skies. They were tapping into this free energy. They had spaceships. They had technology. They had all this stuff. Then once Terrence Howard combines with Billy Carson, they're going to create this megazord of sacred geometry and Anunnaki information to make this new age projectile into the future. And then everybody else is just going to be caught up in the whirlwind of all what's going on because they're not going to go away. The New Age community hasn't gone away. You can't step on that stage and then step away. It doesn't work like that. Once you stop learning, once you stop teaching yourself, that's when you can be hooked because you need something else. And that other person has that something else because they have the ability to hook you. The New Age community is designed to keep people in that vibration of stagnant. They just become stagnant under the illusion of evolving, moving, becoming more connected to all that is. And these gurus, these teachers, these everybody in that community, they do it in one way or other because the people are doing it to themselves. The people who are giving them the mechanisms to do that, they're just like tools. But when you turn those tools into a religion, that's when they get you hooked. And that's when you get trapped. You get into these traps by these trappers. Politicians are trappers. Democrats and Republicans, they trap you. When you wanted to jump out of that trap, they installed the Young Turks, this in-between mode. And it's not just them, they're just an example. The progressive movement, the progressive community. So people who are done with Democrats and Republicans, hey, come on in. We're the progressives. People who are done with the progressive community, hey, come on in. We're the aggressive progressives. When they're done with that community, oh, come on in. We're the new age community. Spend some years in that, get caught up in that, become a different person. Now you're out there floating on your own with all this information and nowhere to put it, nothing to do with it. The people around you are too even ignorant to know what you're even talking about. Now you start to develop your so-called spiritual ego because now you have information that other people don't have that's connected to a higher vibration than what most people can even interpret. Now you are some holier than thou fucking thing against the whole world, and you can say and do whatever you want to yourself because you're not like them. And that's what happens in the New Age community and what's allowing these systems, just like Democrats and Republicans, to continue on. Because in the mainstream community, Democrats and Republicans, people who are in the inner city communities who don't even have enough power to get into politics, they are stuck trapped in the lower vibrations. When you get into outside of the politics, outside of the progressives, into the New Age community, when you start to live in the New Age community, you start downloading this idea of higher vibrations. When you stay in there, you become that. You no longer are, even when you're no longer subjected to being a part of that community and just regurgitating shit just because you need something to say, no matter what it is, whether you're trapped in that community or you just identify with the people in that community, because there's a difference, it doesn't matter. What matters is that overall, you've separated yourself from the people who appear to be in a lower vibration. So now you are on a higher vibration, but you're in the same thing. You're in a trap because you're not moving. You're not connecting yourself with everybody. You're connecting yourself with the people that you want to connect yourself to. The people in the higher vibrations. And that's fucking bullshit because that has nothing to do with humanity. In fact, you're not even going in to the storylines that are at the foundation of so-called humanity. You just make shit up and say, oh, well, I'm just different. We're different. Hey, you're different too. Yeah, I'm different. Oh, we're different. Yeah, let's make a community. We're so different. In another trap. And what some people do is they go back to the progressive mentality, or they go back to the political mentality and try to do something only from that perspective because they don't know where else to go. Other people go back into the religious perspective because that's the only thing that feels tangible to them. Because a lot of them jump into the New Age community, feel a certain way, but there's no tangibility there. They can't grab onto anything. So they just kind of revert back to what was comfortable and what they thought they had a grasp on, whether that's their religious background or their political background or nothing. They just go into nothing. This is where people like Terrence Howard enter in and where stagnant becomes across the board because, for one, nobody gives a shit on, a lot of people are not believing and following politics anymore. A lot of people are not following the progressive agenda anymore. A lot of people are not following the New Age agenda anymore. And this is my personal observation of what's going on. So this is why, at this moment in time, people like Billy Carson and Terrence Howard have to be installed into the minds of the masses so that they can reactivate these communities to work for them, to push towards a particular agenda again. So you bring Terrence Howard in to bridge the gap between the political and the New Age community with mathematics. You bring him in to bridge the alternative information community from the History Channel and the Anunnaki and your ancient astronaut theorists that they've been seeding on TV shows like Ancient Aliens. You bring people like Billy Carson in to join forces with Terrence Howard and close the gap between the New Age community and the mainstream community with the glue of the alternative information community. So the alien agenda community. Well, they don't even have to be a part of the alien agenda community. They just have to be in the alien mindset, because that's another whole group. There's a whole group of people who aren't necessarily in the New Age community, don't really relate to politics, have a certain understanding of science and technology, but they believe in aliens. This is another part of the mind control system, another group that's out there. And like I said, this is where the Billy Carsons come in order to bridge that gap. Then you start looking on the walls of all the ancient Egypt and you see a flower of life. Then you see the reference to the Anunnaki. Then you start talking to old people who bring in the indigenous perspectives of the Anunnaki, and then you bring in the religious community with connecting the Anunnaki and all the UFO stuff that's in the Bible. Oh shit, now you got all the people in the mainstream and the New Age locked in, hooked, eventually trapped if they're not already trapped. Because you already have people trapping themselves, because what happens in these communities is that the pressure builds up so much inside of them because they have nowhere to share this information. They have nothing to do with it. They download all this supposed high vibration reality. It's creating a pressure inside of them, and it has nowhere to go. So bring in somebody like Terrence Howard, bring in somebody like Billy Carson, and now as soon as he says the flower of life on the Joe Rogan Experience, that creates an artificial pressure relief on the individual, because the weight is no longer on their shoulders anymore. Now they think, oh, somebody's talking about the flower of life on a mainstream network. Now I don't have to hold on to all this energy anymore. It's now being dispersed into the minds of the masses. It feels so good. And in that process, they create a connection with these people who are doing that. They think, and they want to think, that people like Terrence Howard are benevolent, that people like Billy Carson are on their team. They don't even know what the teams are. They don't know what the systems are doing. They just know something's happening, and it has something to do with a subject that they are somewhat aware of, that they kind of know about in some kind of way. That's why as soon as I started doing the research on these Flower of Life perspectives, and then I saw it on the international flag of humanity with an astronaut, a supposed astronaut on it, I knew this is exactly what they were going to sell in, and it was only a matter of time. This is why I have videos from 6, 8, 10 years ago talking about shit that's going on right now, because they were already saying what they want to do for the masses of people in the future. So, in closing, the masses of people are surrounded by traps and trappers. And these trappers know, they are aware that the masses of people have an inclination to grab onto something. Think of it as a literal trap. Instead of making a cage with a piece of cheese in it or some kind of thing that's going to be attracted to an animal to go into that cage, we are trapped with mindsets, with belief systems. And we get sucked into these traps with bait like the flower of life. Imagine a flower of life sitting in the middle of a bear trap or a beaver trap. And as soon as you go in there, the trap doesn't close on you. You close the trap on yourself because you're holding on to that thing that you thought was going to give you that fullness that you desired. They play on our desires. They play on our primal states of being. This is why sex is sold in everything. Fear sold you the vaccines. Sex sells you the gender ideology. Love sells you all of the above. Sells you yourself, sells you your identity, your ideology, your gender ideology, your partnerships, your future, your purpose. More simple minds get trapped with stuff like science. This is why Terrence Howard brought in this mathematical trap piece of bait to get people on that, and then eventually leak into the science of platonic solids and the metaphysical nature of reality and so on and so forth, because that's going to lead them into the Anunnaki stories and another slave story, another limitation program. Whether or not those stories are based in any kind of reality doesn't matter, because like I said, with everything else, it's the way they sell you this shit. The stories bearing truth or not don't matter, because what the people do with the stories is what matters. What the people do with these people is what matters. When they put the people on a pedestal, they're putting their own power in the back somewhere out of their own reach, because now they put it in the hands of these people who have been put out there to take that power and run it into the ground. And they did it by trapping you in this cage. And when you're in that cage and you've been in there for so long, you've been in there defending yourself against the people walking around and pointing at you and telling you that you're in a cage. You've been in that cage holding on for dear life to that flower of life, trying to defend yourself 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road. When the fucking cage is open and you have the potential, you have the ability to walk out of that cage, you don't want to walk out of there anymore, because that new caged person is the new you. It's like the elephant that doesn't want to walk away from that chair that they think they're chained to because they've been chained to something for so long. That circus elephant. Everybody is a circus elephant. So Terrence Howard traps you with the science. Billy Carson traps you with the story. Alex Jones traps you with the fear and the politics and the corruption. David Icke traps you with another kind of fear, a higher fear, interdimensional fear. And some science. He does all of it. The New Age community traps you with love. Then you stay in that community defending, holding on to love as if love is everything and that's the only thing and that's it. No, okay, well, that's one way to go about it. But like I said, it's also exactly where the system wants people to be. Powerless, defenseless, without any weapons to defend themselves. Channelers do this in their own way. They sell all of the above. They sell the story. They sell the science. They sell the love. They sell the future. They sell the past. They sell the aliens. I don't know how I almost missed that, but they sell the aliens. They sell everything. All of the above in the New Age community is packaged in the channeling approach. And then the trap with that is a lot of the times people get trapped just in the channeler, and their mind shuts off because they don't have to think anymore, because they truly believe that this channeler, this channeled information, they'll never be able to in real time process the information that's equivalent to what a channeler brings to the discussion. So they give up, and then they just focus all of their attention and their energy on the channeled information coming out. So they'll go to the channeler's channel one week, then they'll go the next week and the next week, and then they'll travel to go see somewhere else, then they'll watch the videos, and they'll do everything, and they'll circle their whole approach around a channeler. And what are they doing again? Nothing. They are doing nothing themselves, and they've given all their power away to the channeler, and they become trapped. Gurus do this. In fact, a guru is a good example of a really easy example to see how the mechanism works as a whole, because it's easy to comprehend a corrupt guru, because they are literally, in many cases, fucking you over. They will suck you into their circle, suck the life out of you, and if you no longer want to be a part of their cult or whatever they're telling you is the end all be all, then you become an enemy. This is what happened in that Twin Flames cult, where these two leaders who are supposedly twin flames, they were telling people that they have the authority on who is a twin flame and who isn't. And if you started to disagree with what they were saying, then they would outcast you. Gurus do this in many different ways. They can do it with the information. They can do it with sex. On both extremes, there are gurus who base all of their work on sex and that connection and that being this divine high experience. And you have people who also do it on the other end of that spectrum. They do no sex. It's just nothing, no pleasure, no desire, no nothing. And if you want to be like us, you do that. Or in another group with the sex, if you want to be like us, you do this. And then once they get into there, they just follow along and do it, and that's the trap. This is what's happening with people like Terrence Howard. Instead of literally fucking you over, they're mentally fucking you over, because you're just getting sucked into another trap. The biggest thing with these individuals like Terrence Howard, which is such a problem, is because, for me, I've been speaking on people like this. I've pretty much based my whole YouTube channel around this, warning people about these systems, these people, these traps. Not only because it needs to happen, but because I myself was trapped. I trapped myself a number of times in these systems, and I know how they work. I know how they're used. It's easy to see how these systems work when you want to see. If you're in a trap, you don't want to see it, because if you see it, that means you're going to release yourself from that trap, but the trap becomes your home. It becomes like the Stockholm Syndrome. You start to love it. You start to identify with it. You start to become it.
I guess the difference between me and some people here is that I don't choose to be a victim, Charlie, which I think is the biggest problem we have here today, are people who wake up every single day looking for a reason to be oppressed, looking for a reason to cry and make an excuse about why they're not in a position to go win. I don't see the color of my skin as a disability. I see it as simply an accessory that I couldn't control. I've been black all my life. I've been black today, and I'm thriving here. I think that's a roll tide right there, right? I don't know.
And so, CJ, let me ask you, CRT, racist?
It's not just racist, it's the exact iteration of white supremacy, just in reverse. I think it's important that we start teaching young people not to hate other people because of the color of their skin. We can teach black people to be proud of who they are without telling white people they should be ashamed of who they are. You know?
Amen. Yeah. So, closing thought, CJ. Is this trying to divide the country?
It's not only trying to divide the country, it's trying to break apart the foundation upon which it was built. You know, people forget the words of MLK, Rosa Parks, all those people who fought so hard for us to be a united country, where we didn't see the color of one's skin, but their character. This is about taking us away from the vision and the dream of Martin Luther King and just taking us to the dream of Kamala Harris, and I don't want to live that dream.
Amen. CJ, you're a great American. Give it up for CJ, everybody. So good. God bless you, man.
In the Western-minded, United States, we trapped ourselves in this idea that the United States is the best country in the world. It's the most evolved. It's the most this. It's the most that. In fact, these Republicans are selling this every day. They're selling it right now.
We're creating a movement to say we never want to go back to the segregation that once existed in this country that is now being pushed by people in corporate America, in academia, and other places. We want to strive for a country that cares about character and the soul and the spirit of the individual, not on tribes, not on the melanin content in people's skin. We are the least racist, most accepting, multiracial country in the history of the planet, and I pray one day you'll be thankful to live in that country. Okay. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you.
This is how they get you. They get you because they get people who look like you to defend and promote programs. They have people who represent every layer of consciousness.
Our best days are ahead. It is a gift from the Lord to live in America, the greatest nation ever to exist in the history of the world. God bless you guys.
If they want to teach you or install a subject to you, they will go to both extremes of that side. They will go to the extreme of having somebody who looks like you defend what they're saying and downplay what you're saying.
It's not only trying to divide the country, it's trying to break apart the foundation upon which it was built. You know, people forget the words of MLK, Rosa Parks, all those people who fought so hard for us to be united country, where we didn't see the color of one's skin, but their character.
And they will have somebody who looks like you attack what these individuals who seem off are saying, but aren't strong enough to take it to the extreme just to get beat up.
You're in Alabama. You are literally in the place where it's not okay.
You mean the place that has given you more talking time than any other person here, and where they sit respectfully. You're supposed to shut
me down and be like, go sit down? I mean, of course I'm going to talk to you.
That would have happened 100 years ago. You're right. 100 years ago, you might not have been allowed to come into this room, which would have been
bow to you because
which would have been evil. No, instead, we are here.
These are fixed fights in a way with people who don't know that they're in a fixed fight. It's like putting a heavyweight in the ring with a featherweight, and they can't see that person. The featherweight can't see that person as a heavyweight, but we know, we can see it. It's like a mirror effect. We could see it, but they can't. And they go in there thinking that they're going to be able to do what they want to do, but they end up setting up the program and that mind control up for the next stage without even knowing it. It's a very complex system. So I've been observing, analyzing the way things affect people because they've affected me. And I've been watching them on the internet and seeing how it worked, and to this day, it hasn't changed.
A lot of black people play that victim role a lot. Every single time they play the victim role that they are being oppressed. When you keep seeing yourself as a black person, you will never move anywhere. You have to see yourself that it's your character that judge who you are. The way you behave, the way you act is how people are going to judge you.
How the fuck in the world did Republicans become the superheroes of everything? How did that happen? They went from being dog shit. They went from being under the dog shit to now at the top of the food chain of progressive movement. How the fuck did that happen? It's because it was orchestrated. These are all fake ass people out here doing this shit. They don't know that they're fake because they're in a trap selling fake shit. It's like people driving around electric cars, priding themselves on being sustainable and all this shit. All of that energy that people, how the fuck are you charging your electric car? Are you charging your electric car with electric energy? Or is that electric energy coming from supposedly fossil fuels, coal, and all that shit that's just the old energy? It's an illusion. It's make-believe. They think they're cool and sustainable because they drive an electric car, but they get their energy from not sustainable energy. Republicans now think they're cool because they drive an electric Republican perspective, but their energy is still coming from that corrupt, busted, never been great, never been right, never been on point in any way as system they call the American dream, the system of racism, white supremacy, the old industrial mindset of the Western ideologies. That's where they're getting it from. It's the same shit. It's the same shit, different day. And the industry knows this. The industry is well aware that the energy that they get for their electric cars comes from not sustainable systems. Even the batteries in the fucking cars are coming from the Congo, are coming from Africa, from slave labor. They knew that shit. They know that shit. This is why the marketing has to be so out of this world in favor of the way they're doing what they're doing. It's no different than the system overall. The United States, the way it conducts its business right now, it is a mere image of how they are selling the electric car movement. They have sold the Western ideology movement the same way they're selling electric cars. And since people have been sucking up the tailpipe of fossil fuels for so long, coughing and dying, and oh, well, this is so bad, they went from fear to love. Same shit. It's fake fear and fake love. Climate change, fake fear, fake love, electric cars. Everything. Every fucking thing. It's a trap. So don't get trapped. They're getting more complex. They're making some bigger moves now, some more complex moves. The traps are getting a little more intricate. Think of the cages on those traps. They used to be chain link fences, were a little bit bigger. Now they're getting a little smaller. You can't get your fingers through there. It's harder to see outside of that trap. They're blurring the images. Traps are starting to be combined. This trap over here is starting to combine with this trap and to create some one big ass trap. People are starting to be attracted to different kind of baits now. And maintaining that perspective of not being able to critically think for themselves.